Okay, so last step is the software side of things. So what we need to do is we need to set everything up in BetaFlight. And this is going to be a bunch of just quick clicking and we'll be done. So BetaFlight is a program or little app that you can download through Google Chrome. You need to use Google Chrome's extension warehouse. Download the app, install on your computer. I've got it pinned it to my taskbar over here. Open the map up and you're going to see this screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down to, well, firstly we're going to need to plug our drone in over USB using that little adapter connector that we had. Your drone might make a few singing noises to you, and that's about it. And then you're going to be able to, or you need to be able to see our COM5 or some COM port just selected. It might be 8 or 1 or 2 or whatever it might be. And you need to make sure the baud rate is set to 115/200. Okay, and I usually have auto connect always enabled. So welcome screen, nothing we need to worry about. Documented support, nothing we need to worry about. Firmware flasher. So we're going to come over here, we're going to scroll around until we find flight controller SP Racing F3. Select that. Make sure you've got the latest one here selected. This is off, off, on and off. Manual baud rate is on. 115/200, same as this over here. 115/200. We're going to come down here. You can read all of these messages if you really want to. Please load firmware file, and I'm going to load firmware from online. It'll automatically go and fetch the SP Racing F3 latest firmware. Remember, SP Racing F3 is what we have as the brain of our flight controller, and it's now loaded the firmware. We can now say flash firmware. I will not click it because my firmware is already good to go. So you will need to click that and it will flash your firmware and you will be done. You can then go connect, and you should be able to connect at this point. So now you've got yourself into the thing over here. You can pick the drone up off the table and you can move it around, and you should have some input. The drone should be moving as you move it on the table or in your hand. And the way this works is you can go calibrate accelerometer. So we're going to do a calibrate accelerometer. Just click it and let it run. Then you're going to say click this calibrate magnometer. I'm not going to do it quite this very moment, but what it's going to do is it's going to give you 30 seconds to take your drone and turn it 360 degrees like that from left to right. Turn it 360 degrees from front to back, and then rotate it 360 degrees along like the table, as if you're just rotating it on the table. And it's going to then calibrate your magnometer. And gyroscope, accelerometer, magnometer, and barometer, those are the 4 sensors that our flight controller, our little brain, has on it. Gyroscope will tell us our X, Y, and Z orientations. Accelerometer will tell us our change in velocity, our change in speed. Magnometer will tell us where magnetic north is, and barometer will tell us how much barometric pressure we have. So if I lift the drone off the table, it will experience less barometric pressure, and I'll be able to ask the drone to lock and hold its current height. And it will be able to know its current height because of the barometer. And this is something that's only on the deluxe version of the brain that the flight controller that we bought. And I specifically chose it because we have the barometer option. And it'll make things a lot easier in terms of flying. We can now go down all of these, and it's going to go quite quickly. So just go to ports, leave everything here as it is, just tick UART3 serial RX. Do not include that. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you just want to say serial RX. Everything else stays the exact same. And we're going to say save and reboot. Click it, get your drone to save and reboot. Configuration, we're going to go through this real quick. You can explore these settings as much as you want, but the ones that we need to look at, make sure this is one shot 125. This is off. Motor stop is on. Disarm motors is on. Make sure that if you've turned your flight controller or your brain to face to the left or to the right or backwards, that means that it doesn't know where front is anymore. So you just need to come and set this over here Mine is turned 90 degrees in my drone, so I've gone and set it to 90 degrees, so now it understands that north is actually to the right of the flight controller, technically, because my one faces out this way. So just see which way your drone, your flight controller needs to adjust and tweak it over here. 90, yeah. You want to come down to receiver, and you're going to select serial based receiver, SpecSat, SBus, SUMD, and you're going to select iBus. And you're done with receiver. Battery voltage, VBAT is on, and this is where we're going to specify exactly what levels, battery levels, voltage levels we want certain things to happen at. So at 3.5 volt, remember that a fully charged lithium-ion battery, lithium polymer battery, each cell will be 3.8. We are going to say at 3.5, when it gets down to 3.5, it'll start beeping slowly, and when it gets to 3.3, that's minimum cell voltage, it'll start beeping really fast. And once we've done that, we're good to go to the next section. This is all good. We can leave it all as it is. And yours should look something like that, but none of that's important either. I've just got LEDs on my drone, so I've gone and done that as well. So just go save and reboot, and you're done with configuration. Failsafe, select, and you're done. Save and reboot. PID tuning, we're not going to do anything yet. Receiver, we're going to see something like this. So what we can do is, if I take my battery, and I'm working on my drone now with my hands, and I've got my battery, and I plug the battery in, you can hear the drone sing to me, and now I've got power to my drone. And if I take the controller, which is now in my hands, and I turn the controller on, I now get control from my controller, and I am now moving the sticks on my controller, and it's resulting in stick movement in BetaFlight. And I can fly the little drone in the bottom right corner. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that X, roll, pitch, yaw, and throttle are all responding according to what they're supposed to be. So if that's all good, you're probably good to go as well. There's very little that can really be going wrong here as well. That's pretty much it. We can turn that off and unplug our battery. The chances of something being wrong here is very, very remote, so we're just going to leave it as it is. If we go down to modes, what we're going to do here is we're going to say ARM, and ARM, this is going to be where we set up our modes, right? So we're going to set an ARM mode for AUX1, and we're going to set up, just grab it and move it somewhere between, say, 1600 to 1700 to 1800, somewhere in this region over here, and drop it, and just make sure that this area here is highlighted somewhere on this side. That's just about as good as you're going to get. And that'll make it that when you flip a switch on your controller, it will arm, like a, think of it as like a bomb. Basically, you arm the bomb, and now the bomb, or the drone in this case, is live, so we can now fly the drone. And when we disarm the bomb or disarm the drone, then it is not live anymore. So there, maybe a bomb wasn't the best analogy, but you get the idea. Angle mode is especially for drones, and that allows you to, if you get into trouble and the drone's flipping out of control and you've done something really bad, you just take your hands off the control and the drone will level itself. It'll always try and get back to a level position, a flat position. So angle mode is great. So we're going to have angle mode stretched across the entire range over here, so no matter where we have our settings, at any point we're always in angle mode. Next one is barometer, and what we're going to, and this is AUX2 just for the record, make sure this is ARM is AUX1, AUX2 is angle, barometer is angle, and barometer we're going to have somewhere here, say 1300-ish somewhere, and 1700 somewhere. we're going to have the middle section highlighted in beeper. We're going to have aux2, and we're going to have maybe 1700 somewhere around here highlighted to the end. And it doesn't matter if these overlap with each other. It doesn't actually matter. That's it. And you can say save, and you're done. Adjustments, nothing needs to be done there. Servos, nothing needs to be done here. Motors, we will come back to this in a second. Race transponder, nothing. LEDs, nothing. In fact, none of these. We don't need any of these for anything. And if you want to have a look at something interesting, go to sensors. Make sure all 4 of these are ticked at the top. Gyroscope, accelerometer, magnometer, barometer. And make sure your battery is plugged in on your drone. And if things don't refresh, which seems like they haven't refreshed, you can just go disconnect and connect again. Which it doesn't seem to like. I'm just going to unplug the USB, plug the USB back in, connecting. It says successfully opened connection, but it's lying. I'm just going to do this. Connect the USB. And we will continue this in the next video. Oh, we're successfully through. Okay, so just unplug the USB and plug the battery back in, and yeah, we're back, we're fine. So we're going to go to motors. We need to, we were doing sensors. I'm jumping around a little bit. Sensors, make sure all of these are selected, and what we're going to see are graphs. There's gyroscope, and this whole section is the readings that we're getting from the gyroscope. So if we wiggle the drone here on the table, we're going to get readings coming from the gyroscope. Same for accelerometer, same for magnometer, and barometer. If we pick the drone up off the table, which I'm going to do now, we're going to see the barometer climbs, and when I lower the drone back down to the table, the barometer gets lower, and I can do an up movement and a down movement, and an up movement and a down movement, and I am just lifting and dropping the drone. So it can detect so much as like a half a meter's climb. That was about a half a meter's worth of altitude that it got, and it was able to detect that. So you can get an idea how sensitive the barometer is. So we can really get a nice stable hold if we take care with the settings. So the next thing we need to, this is just an interesting area. I think it's just nice to play with. Let's go to motors. So the motors is the last final thing we need to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to, if we select over here, and we have to have our propellers, remove all propellers, we have to have that selected, and we say turn this on. We now get, and make sure there's no propellers on. If you move, and there's a battery plugged into the drone, if you move this up, your motor will start spinning. And if you move motor 2 will start spinning, and that'll go true for all 4 motors. Now what we can do is we can turn that off, unplug our battery from our drone, and we need to do ESC and motor calibration. So what we need to do is make definitely sure that there's no power going to the drone. The only thing that's plugged into the drone at this point is the USB cable, and there are no propellers on the drone. So what we're going to do is we're now going to select this, and we're going to drag this all the way up to the top. Okay, and what's going to happen now is I'm going to plug the battery back into the drone now, and what it's going to detect, because it will never be seeing a reading like this, so it's a very unique reading to see all 4 motors fully powered like this in a bench environment. So it's going to automatically know that we are in a calibrating or setting environment. So when I plug my battery in, it's going to sing to me a little bit. The drone's going to sing to me. That will show that it's in settings mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this bar down, and the drone's going to sync to me again, and that is it. And we can deselect that, and now everything is calibrated and balanced to be with each other. And that is it. We are officially done. I recommend taking the drone out, putting the battery in, securing the battery nicely, making sure there's no cable sticking out of the drone, attaching the propellers, making sure not to stick anything into the actual battery, the motor enclosures. So just hold it with your hand and tighten the nut with a spanner. Making sure to use the propellers that are correct for their motors. So make sure that the direction the propeller spins is correct in terms of the direction the wind's going to be blowing from the propeller's movement. And take the drone out to a field. I recommend trying to get the drone off the ground and floating at about between 1 meter to 2 meters from the ground, and just practicing hovering it, and walk with the drone. If it starts floating and drifting places, just walk along with it, and always stand like maybe 4 or 5 meters away from it, and behind it, so it's always facing away from you. And then practice, once you're happy hovering it at about 1 meter to 2 meters, practice flying it slowly away from you to maybe about 10-20 meters away, and then flying it straight line like a reverse it and fly it back towards you in a straight line. Don't try and turn it. The moment you turn it to face towards you, it'll feel like all the controls are inverted, which might get confusing at first. So first just try fly straight line away from you, and then straight line back to you, like almost driving in a straight line away from you and then reversing back towards you. And then we will get to more interesting exercises later. But for now, just get certain that the drone is flying. And if anything goes wrong, what you need to do is pull the accelerator down to 0, so there's no power. And if worst case scenario comes to worse, flip the arm switch so you disarm the drone, and it will just fall out the sky. 99% of the time, you're going to damage the drone more by trying to save it. Just let it fall to the ground. I think that's pretty much about it. And try and keep over grass and don't crash into things. Generally a good rule. Good luck.